Hola a todos, bienvenidos a Paredro, el podcast de libros, autores y demás actores del mundo literario. Mi nombre es Camilo Hoyos y quizás el saludo para el capítulo de hoy debió haber sido más bien Welcome to Paredro, puesto que hoy por primera vez cruzamos las fronteras de la lengua para traer un capítulo grabado íntegramente en inglés. Y esto requiere de una pequeña explicación. Hace ya un par de semanas me llamaron de la librería editorial Siglo del Hombre para contarme que la grandiosa autora moldava Tatiana Țîbuleac, autora de El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes, publicado por la editorial Impedimenta a cargo de Enrique Redel, a quien recientemente entrevistamos, les decía que me llamaron para contarme que Tatiana Țîbuleac estaría en Bogotá concediendo entrevistas, y en este caso por supuesto en inglés. Pues en ese momento caí en cuenta de que la labor de promoción de lectura que hacemos desde Paredro, porque eso es lo que somos, promotores de lectura, se había ceñido hasta el momento al español, pero que sin embargo entre nuestra audiencia existe una gran cantidad de lectores bilingües hispanoparlantes que agradecerán inmensamente poder escuchar directamente a algunos de sus autores favoritos traducidos, ya fuera en su lengua original o, por supuesto, en inglés. Así que ese mismo día confirmamos nuestra entrevista con Tatiana y nos embarcamos a hacer entrevistas y a promover la lectura del español en inglés, convencidos además de que la promoción de lectura no conoce de una sola lengua, sino de traducciones y de los puentes que queramos realizar. Les puedo también avisar que vendrán muchos más capítulos como este y me comprometo y prometo desde ya uno que me parece muy especial y se trata de una entrevista que le realicé a Jonathan Franzen. Pero eso vendrá después porque hoy comenzamos con Tatiana Țîbuleac y en este nuevo formato que es Paredro Podcast en inglés. Tatiana nació en 1978 en Chisinau, Moldavia. Es hija única de un periodista y de la correctora de un periódico. Y Tatiana se dio a conocer en 1995 cuando empezó la columna Historias Verdaderas en el periódico Flux, uno de los diarios más importantes en lengua rumana. Su primer libro es una colección de relatos titulados Fábulas Modernas, que publicó en 2014 y que trata sobre los inmigrantes. Alcanzamos a referirnos a ese libro en esta entrevista. Sin embargo, su primera novela, El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes, se publicó en el 2016 e Impedimenta la tradujo en 2019. Desde el momento en que apareció, impactó a la crítica y a los lectores y se consideró un auténtico fenómeno literario en Rumanía. Ha recibido varios premios, no solamente la obra como su traducción. Por ejemplo, el premio otorgado por la Unión de Escritores de Moldavia en 2017 o el premio Observator Cultural de Rumanía en 2018. Pero también la traducción realizada por Marian Ochoa de Eribe al español, esto es, se alzó con el premio Cálamo Libro del año 2019, el premio Las Librerías Recomiendan en 2020 y el premio Novela Europea Casino de Santiago ese mismo año. Por lo tanto, y sin mayores preámbulos, los dejamos con nuestro primer capítulo en inglés, con Tatiana Țîbuleac y esta obra traducida por Marian Ochoa de Eribe, publicada por Impedimenta, que tiene un título muy hermoso como lo es El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes. Que no olviden que pueden pedir, así como El jardín de vidrio, que es su segunda novela, en Busca Libre, la librería online más grande de Latinoamérica, con más de 5 millones de títulos, muchos de ellos te pueden llegar al día siguiente. Así es que la piden ahora, les puede estar llegando mañana. Así que sin mayores preámbulos, bienvenidos, o podríamos decir más bien, welcome. Well, Tatiana, first of all, welcome to Paredro.
Thank you very much for having me here.
This is the first time I say this in English because this is our first chapter being recorded, an interview in English, and it's done in such a way that bilingual or Spanish readers can access directly authors that don't speak specifically Spanish or write in Spanish. And we'll be talking about this wonderful novel, Tatiana, which is El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes, translated by Marian Ochoa de Eribe, which has been a wonderful success here. And I would like to start asking you, there are a lot of emotions and a lot of actions in the novel, but I guess there's one that might encompass them all, which is anger. How did you manage and how do you see anger in the novel?
Well, I suppose I am an angry person. Let's start this podcast by saying that I'm amazed at what wonderful readers I have here in Colombia. I'm amazed at the profoundness of discussions. Every time I meet someone, I just want to hug that person because he read the book in a much better way than I wrote it. I just suppose that people here have this kind of natural ability of embracing emotion, and be it hate or love or sadness or happiness. You started asking me about hate. I didn't really think about it until the book was released, and I was asked more and more, why did I put so much hate in the book? I suppose it has to do with the fact that the main character, Alexei, is a teenager. And as a mother of a teenage boy, I can tell you that there is a lot of hate followed by, depression, and then again burst into the happiness happening in a teenage time. I don't think the hate is present through all the book. It's present massively at the beginning, but then it softens. And
Yes.
this is what is happening in life, I suppose. I needed this hate because when I wrote this book, I started with a strong feeling myself. I had lots of fears and lots of frustrations. I just became a mother. I finally found a place in the moment in life to speak to my father about everything. I wasn't happy. So I started writing this book, being a frustrated mother, being a happy mother as well, being a happy daughter, but finally I had a discussion with my father. It is a sort of Babylon of feelings, I think. But it follows one very simple feeling, which, in my opinion, is love. What do we do when we are not loved? How do we love when we haven't been loved ourselves? And what are the ways of achieving this?
And I think that the novel and the writing of the novel is precisely this evolution from anger or hate to love, and to color, and to the green color, of course, of the eyes. When I think about anger and hate being as the most, perhaps it's because I'm Colombian, connecting with what you said, because I thought it's incredible how anger and hate in a teenager can be so universal. Because it's like, of course there's a relationship, of hatred relationship with the mother, but I don't believe that hate is not only from the relation with the mother, but from many other things later on that I will be asking. So I was wondering how manage immigration, of course, but I will ask you about that later on, how that usage of anger actually shows how light and love can be an aftermath of hatred only if it's permitted to evolve and not to be only destructive.
First of all, why is this book a bit shocking at the beginning? Because this anger, this hate is towards a mother. We don't say bad things about mothers generally. We can hate everyone else. We can even hate our mother, but we don't really say this to her face or to someone else's face. In my culture, a mother is saint, so you don't really say bad things about mother because that shows that you are abnormal. You can kill someone, but you don't say that your mother is bad. But I think it's very important for us to admit that in every person's life there is a period then the feeling towards your parents, and especially towards your mother, who is always there, it's not necessarily something you want to talk about.
Exactly.
And if we say that thing easily and openly, that can help us to go through some very difficult periods of time, because we are frustrated with life in general, but sometimes because mother is there, she's the first one to experience that. Alexei, my character, doesn't necessarily hate the mother, but he's an unhappy child. He just lost a sister whom he loved, and he has a feeling that he is guilty somehow for this loss. The father doesn't really love him, doesn't really like him even. He thinks that he's a very weak male, and he thinks that men should be very powerful and strong. The mother doesn't really have time for Alexei because she just lost a child and she has her own trauma. So I think that his hate of his is somehow, it's understandable. It's understandable, but the problem is that still he has only one person he can talk about it, and it's the mother.
Exactly.
In his case, the mother finds out that she has cancer, and she wants to somehow make up things with Alexei. But sometimes in life we don't have that kind of opportunity. We don't have an opportunity to be together. So what do we do then? So probably this book message of this book is that we need to talk. We always need to talk. We always need to express our feelings and not be, hiding them and reprimanding them. Because sometimes life doesn't give you an opportunity to spend the summer together like they had. And probably this was my own problem. I didn't really talk to my father. And then I did, finally. I understood that how many years were wasted for miscommunication.
Exactly. And there's something which is, Tatiana, I think it's very interesting of this idea of I don't know if the word it's a revision of, or it's visiting against the images that we had, or our own mothers or fathers, perhaps in our own generation.
Yeah.
Here, for example, Pilar Quintana with the Abyss and many other novels, there has been, and many other authors are actually under sort of the same work of just visiting this specific and crucial moments, and that is never a happy track. It's never a happy ending, of course. And there was this one chapter that from William Faulkner that I had in my head all the time reading your novel. It's a very small chapter from As I Lay Dying, which is the history of a dying mother. And the chapter is My Mother is a Fish. And I read it when I was about 16 years old. And it was shocking to me. It was shocking just the way that someone could talk about the mother in such a way. Perhaps it was an experience completely different from my own, etc., etc. But do you think that we are in a moment, perhaps from the Me Too movement or feminism, in which, I will not say universal, but not only locally, we're revisiting the functions of a mother and the poetic images of a mother and fathers in a way to explain us?
No olviden que pueden conseguir El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes a través de buscalibre.com, la librería online más grande de Latinoamérica con más de 5 millones de libros a tu disposición y además con unas velocidades de entrega que agradecerás si estás muerto de las ganas de leer este libro prontamente.
I think that the relationship with a mother, it's very different for every person, for every country even, because there are societies where the mother is only viewed as a mother. You know, a woman should be only a mother and the rest is under. Exactly. In other societies, a woman is first of all a woman, a wife, a lover, and then a mother. And then her role is a bit different. But I believe that what's important to understand and to talk more and more about it is that a mother is not only a woman who gives birth. She still remains, first of all, a daughter. She is also a wife, or she is also a woman, maybe not a wife, but a woman who has her own sexuality, her own desires. And then also, not all the mothers has to be the same, because there are many ways of loving your children, there are many ways of caring for your children. And I think that it's very important for us to bust this myth of a mother who is like a monument, who has no feelings, who has only services. I think that my mom was this kind of martyr mother. Her life is viewed for herself, first of all, only through my successes, only what I achieved. You know, she's always talking about herself through me. And that puts a pressure on me as well, because what if I fail? Does it mean that she doesn't have a life anymore? And every time I'm doing something maybe different from what she did to me, she says, well, no, but you can't do that. You have a child now, you have 2 children. And I trying to make her understand that my children are lovely, but I also have a life still. I'm young. She doesn't really understand that. And I think that when she read this book, she maybe understood it. Maybe understood that I need to be happy for myself. that a woman is not a sort of tree which is alone in a wood. A woman needs help, a woman needs partnerships, a woman needs acceptance, and first of all from other women and also from society. So I'm happy that this book started a certain discussion in part of the world I'm coming from, in Moldova, let's say, because lots of women felt liberated. Lots of women understood that they will be hated by their teenage sons no matter what they do, but that doesn't make them bad people, bad mothers, bad women. And also, I got a lot of, feedback from men and from people who said, like, finally, we made peace with my mom, with my late mom, because you start understanding that there is no only extremes, that there are moments where you just need to sit in the middle of a room and say, okay, what do we do now? How do we together live, and how do we together make space for each other's, lives?
Exactly. And the novel, that's why I was saying that your novel, it's like a writing to heal. It's a process. Not only the reader can actually experience that healing process with someone else, father or mother, of course, but of course it's Alexi starting because he is remembering.
Yeah.
And that's something very important. He's remembering and he's writing what he's remembering, but he's a painter. So he's actually pushing his own machine, let's say, into a format and a language that it's not his own, because I'm constantly asking myself, why isn't he painting? I know that it's a psychiatrist's recommendation, but one would normally say, why isn't he using painting in order to heal? Why writing? And I don't know, it's perhaps writing, it's a technique where you can most easily show the process in order to go from hatred to love.
I think writing in this book has the role of, it's equal to spending time with someone, like talking to someone. His mom is dead, but through writing, he's like there talking to her. Because look what's happening, he hates her, and then he understands her, and then he feels sorry for her, and then he physically takes care of her when she is sick. So it's not like, he doesn't have one summer, like 3 months, but he has different stages of coming to his mom. His mother didn't become more beautiful or more intelligent over one summer, and we understand that what has changed is his way of looking at her through the pain, through the remembering, through understanding more a bit of her own drama. Alexi sees her differently. His eyes are changing, is not her changing. It's true that a sickness can change a person, but usually not to the best. But still, this is the moment when he sees that his mom is funny, that his mom is beautiful, that his mom is, having a good sense of humor. So the way he's approaching her is from hate, but then he suddenly evens up, and then he starts loving her, and he starts forgiving himself for what he didn't do while she was alive. And I believe that this summer in the middle is actually an equivalent of us trying to talk to each other. Just talking helps, because sometimes even in families we don't talk. We are there to do things which takes us to school, to work, to a place, but we don't really talk. Well, what happened to them, they were just put in a very shut environment, only with each other, and they talked, and love came from there.
And I think thank you, Tatiana, that's very beautiful, and it also gives you the sense that the novel, yes, it's writing to remember, but at the same time it's writing to look for it. It's a quest. It's like a search to finally find that image of the mother and be capable of confronting it and changing it. And I guess that's what memory is doing, actually. But there's something that I believe that it's important, and it's mentioned randomly, and I was already mentioning it. It's the immigration situation, because We have a mother and a child who are presumably in Paris, I think, but they come from somewhere else. And I was wondering how, because you have this, there was translated as Modern Fables, which are your 50 stories about migration. Did that psychological perspective of the migrant in any way appeared in this novel to be like a further ingredient to add to that hate and to that anger?
I didn't think about that. I feel that I made them migrants just because I'm living in a sort of international Babylon myself. I'm Moldovan, I live in Paris, my husband is British, so we speak lots of languages, we are in another country. For us, it's not a particular problem because we never thought that we will come to France and live in France and die in France. But for most of migrants, when they decide to go to another place, that means a lot, because that means that or they take everything they have with them, or they leave everything they have behind. So moving to another place adds up, of course, to frustrations, starting from a language, starting from the local culture. They will always have a feeling that they're not quite from here, they just came. So in their case, yes, they are migrants, they live in London, they're coming from Poland, so they're not really from anywhere,
Exactly.
So the fact that she decides to live in France, to die in France, doesn't really mean anything, because they are a family always on the road. And today, lots of people live like that, because of global migration. We see families who live sometimes in 3-4 countries. So I do feel that when you are all the time on the road, you do have this idea that life is going too fast. You don't really have time to communicate, because when you're going to a country, you need to learn the language, you need to start working, you need to make something of your life. So you're always focused on other things than on this kind of family communication. And this is exactly what it happened to them, Alexei is born probably already in London, but he doesn't really feel English, he doesn't feel Polish either. And then his mom is not really there for them, and then they have a tragedy. So my family is not poor, by the way. I didn't want them to make poor, because these kind of tragedies happen everywhere, in any place. But what he's missing is this kind of roots, first of all at home, and second outside. And I think that this summer which they spent together in France also is a summer which he is for the first time reconnected with his past, because he's speaking a lot of Poland, he's remembering things, the grandmother is becoming a very important figure for him. So maybe he's finding his identity as well, which helps him to forgive the mother, because suddenly he understands that he is like her, in a way. So yes, I think this summer for them is not only to reconnect physically as a mother, as a son, but also the mother makes sure before she dies to give him some guidance about whom he is, about how to love a woman, about how to forgive yourself, because life can be very unfair, and it is unfair. Alexei is losing his legs later on. But that summer was a sort of, blessing from her, a guidance in life, maybe how to live before you die.
Yes, there's a very dramatic, very poetic, dramatically speaking, moment when Alexei thinks that she has died, when she's on the tub and she starts screaming and she believes she has died. I hope this is not a spoiler for our readers, but that's the moment when we realize that the conversion is going on and the conversion is happening. There's something else that I wanted to ask you, Tatiana. It has to do with the image that Alexei has about his own writing and the image he has, or all of the others have about him. Because there's a specific line where he says something like, I'm writing this in order to debate or to finally make people forget about that idea that I am a mad artist, that I am a crazy artist. And that caught my attention, because it's like normally we believe that art heals or art crystallizes the traumas and it would be a very typical image of this artist that through his art is doing all this, but he knows that that is sort of a lie, that there's something else, or at least that was the impression I had.
Well, but that is a very good example of how we shouldn't think that art is equal and art is the same for everyone. People do art not to become famous and to make money. Some people do art just because this is the only way to be happy.
Exactly.
Or maybe someone, is an artist because otherwise he would become a very bad man. Maybe putting all the hate and frustration in a painting prevents him to go and shoot people, for instance. I always had a feeling that how we approach art is very unique and very individual. We don't have to do art to become better. Maybe on the contrary, we do art not to become worse in real life. I also feel that we idealize a lot writing and painting and music, and we feel that people who, big creators are usually also very good people, but it's not the case. If you look back, there are a lot of people who were despaired and sick and mad, and still they create one of the most beautiful things in the world. I just somehow struggle to this kind of new current of making art and literature very correct, very politically correct, brushed, shiny. I don't think we should do that, because the beauty of art is that it's different from real life. And if we try to make literature, as a guideline how to live, or only nice things and colored things and good things have place in the literature, it's a bit sad, because that means that why do it in general?
Exactly.
So I think painting for Alexei is his happiness. Maybe writing helps him to remember, but painting doesn't help him with anything. It's just making him happy. He, at one point, I think he takes drugs, as it happens a lot in life, but still, it's something pure with art for him. This is his place of being as he is, not trying to be different or better.
I think that and we're running out of time already, but there's something that I think that it's one of the major, lessons from the novel, if one can say that. It's what you just said about literature trying to make life shiny, perfect, with no sort of conflicts whatsoever. But your novel shows us and reminds us that there are many emotions or many feelings that it's better to embrace them and to recognize them, because only recognizing them can we change them eventually. It's precisely because we do not face certain things, as thinking about the motherhood, of course, etc. It will be the only way of changing those negative things. It's by embracing them, not because we like them, but we need to admit it. We all can only admit when we embrace. It's like the only moment when we say, okay, I assume I do this, and this is the only way in which I can reach love. And I think that's a very strong message to be read here in Colombia, which, by the way, I believe that it's one of your most highly readers. Someone told me a while ago.
Spanish world, yes. Spanish language, it's been present to me.
So I believe that it's this way of handling light and anger that might just take this Spanish reading audience to be so positively and conflictingly comfortable in your books.
Well, I definitely think that here I don't need to explain too much because people, I suppose, they see the world like I do, but it can't be always good and always bad. And there is a middle, and with that middle we try to do our best. And yes, I do believe that I'm amazed how creative people are here, how even in a very poor district you see these beautiful things in the streets, like beautiful art emerging. So it's the same with this book. Is like it doesn't tell a very calm, good story about things which we want to be. It tells a violent story maybe, but still this darkness has light, and I suppose that I'm very familiar to this kind of life.
Thank you, Tatiana. And it's invigorating, and it gives hope to read novels that have been written so far away from Colombia, but that talk to the Colombian ear with such closeness. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this invitation.
Y a todos ustedes, gracias por habernos acompañado en este primer capítulo de Paredro. En inglés hemos estado hablando de El verano en que mi madre tuvo los ojos verdes, de editorial Impedimenta, de Tatiana Țîbuleac, pero me han dicho que es Țîbuleac, si quisiéramos decir el título, el apellido, pero para evitar confusiones. Esto está bajo la traducción de Marian Ochoa de Eribe, así que gracias por habernos acompañado y nos vemos en una próxima edición de este Paredro.